today we're working on word bubbles and lettering. Did you know that a letterist is actually a job for comics? It's not just the artists that do the lettering. Usually they hire someone specifically to do the letters because they're really good at doing the handwriting bit, or they're the ones that insert all of the stuff like splang, thud, kapow, kablooey, that kind of business. That's their gig. They're the ones that design those things, and they're the ones that choose what sort of handwriting is done for each different character. Like if a character has a different accent, maybe they might have a different font that they use, you know, when they're writing out that character's words. If they're a bad guy, maybe they might have a very sinister looking font, or if they're a good person, like a candy princess, maybe they might have rainbows or something like that behind their words. So a letterer's job is actually very, very important. A lot of people might find it tedious because it involves a lot of measuring and sometimes math. And who likes math? Not usually a lot of us, but so letterers actually use these things here called the Ames Lettering Guide. How many of you guys have seen this before?
Kind of familiar.
Yeah, so this was actually a tool used by draftsmen and architects in order to use very, very tiny, consistent handwriting when writing out their blueprints. The way that it works is you take a ruler like this, called a T-frame, and you line it up with whatever it is that you're working on. You place the Ames Lettering Guide square with it, and then if you have a mechanical pencil or something like that, you put it in the holes and just slide it across. Put it in the next hole, slide it across, and so on and so forth. And these sequences of holes in here give you equal sets of lines. Like on this exercise sheet that I have for you guys. Do these sort of lines look familiar at all? Do you remember these at all from like elementary school when you guys were learning how to do cursive and stuff like that? This is very much like that. It's a guide showing you where the tops of your letters should go and where the tops of your lowercase letters should go.
Said that, but maybe
it's different depending on the artist. Some people don't really use the bottom one as much because they do all capital letters. That tends to be the one that's the easiest to default to, and it actually ends up saving space. Like that's why in a lot of superhero comics, if everything is written in all capital letters, they decided to do that because it saves space and allows them to write more things. Doing lowercase letters as well actually takes up more space. So, fun fact. When you're doing lettering, it's almost like you're drawing the letters. You're not just writing them. It takes precision and focus in order to get a consistent letter and have everything looking very uniform. So how do you think lettering, different fonts or inserting these special types of words or anything like that can help influence how you tell your story? Or how it informs your readers about certain things?
Maybe it's like the general feel of the story. If you're writing a horror comic, you wouldn't want to have like rainbows and like happy faces and emoticons and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. You want something that's a little bit creepy, maybe the lines are really shaky, maybe it's really hard to even read the handwriting because you're not supposed to know everything that's going on. That's a really good observation. You guys have made comics using a computer before, or even used computer programs. Have you ever used the computer to put the words into your comics at all?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that there's a weird disconnect between the way the pictures look and the way that the letters look? Yeah. Like, for example, in this super awesome book, which if any of you guys are interested in really in-depth stuff that I can't usually cover in an hour, this is a fantastic resource. It's a really, really great book to use. This here is a really great example. They say that the authors of this book don't really like people using computer fonts in their comics because they compare it to sticking a post-it note on an oil painting. It just looks very out of place, it looks very strange, and like with this picture here, the picture is painted really beautifully and it looks kind of realistic and stuff and all high fantasy, and then you've got like Comic Sans. and it just seems so ridiculous. And that's why a lot of memes that you see on the internet are really funny, because the words that are pasted there are in a font that usually make them look very out of place, like it doesn't fit, and that's kind of what adds to the humor of it, the ridiculosity. So that's also something to consider. There's a comparison here that you guys probably won't be able to see unless I pass it around, of this one artist with hand lettering, a font that's based on the artist's original handwriting, and then computer lettering, and just sort of seeing the way that the mood changes depending on that. So all the tasks that I got recently that I'm excited to delve more into is this DC comic guide to coloring and lettering comics. Half of it is just all about coloring and stuff, and color theory in comics, what colors you can use to evoke certain emotions and things, which I'm really, really excited about. And the other half of it is all about lettering and the nitty-gritty details and stuff, and how to use an Ames lettering guide, and all of the behind-the-scenes sort of stuff that letterers get to do. So if you're interested in this, I highly recommend checking this out as well. I'm going to move on to the next section, which is going to be talking about word bubbles and things. So, speech bubbles, those I think are a little bit more noticeable than particular lettering styles. Is if I have something here, like, so I'll write out my words, and then I'll take my pencil and I'll do the basic shape around it, and if I find that that's a good enough space, that's good. I'll keep that shape. If I'd like to erase that line, I would, or change it in any way. Find out where I want that to go, and then
Well, because they're like front.
draw the curve on top,
Sometimes they have.
curve on
What I
bottom,
think is weird is there's that one
issue
of
side,
with Archie and they're in like
on the other side,
Yeah.
and then connect
they're
it.
sitting on the couch. It's really well, no, it's just the fact that it's like it's still. I mean, that one's obviously not.
But the advantage
But it's still
to
just like.
writing in words and stuff like that digitally is they have a lot of digital tools that make word bubbles for you that look a lot more uniform and don't end up looking so rough.
Was it harder on children? How is it? What was it?
I'm neither for or against one or the other, but I definitely think that both have their place and that you should read the situation depending on what your particular art style is. But finding the perfect font to fit your comic is really, really hard. Down here at the bottom of my board here, I've got a couple of examples of different types of speech bubbles. You've got one that's a dotted line, one that's meant to evoke somebody whispering to somebody else. You've got one that has kind of an electric feel, so something that might be announced over a radio. You've got a bubbly one that's like someone thinking something to themselves, or like if you ever read Garfield when you were little, that's everything Garfield said was always in those those thought bubbles, because it was never really clear whether he was actually speaking or not. In early comics, he was always just thinking to himself and nobody noticed, but in later comics, he could kind of talk to humans and they'd understand him. I don't really know when that switch happened, but that was a thing. Sort of weird bendy ones are meant to apply like sickness, so that's one where you could make your speech bubble seem a little bit more claustrophobic, something that's uncomfortable. Or just like general wibbly ones could convey annoyance or frustration to the situation. And there's lots and lots of different ways that you can do things. It's entirely up to your decisions and your artistic idea. Another thing that I didn't see down there, but something that's done in like manga a lot, is they'll have a regular speech bubble, but then maybe they might do like those squiggly down lines. Have you seen those before?
I've been trying to listen on this morning.
You have to fight the state government every year, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's every 2 years, but it's like a constant, yeah, it's a 2-year budget,
I
but.
feel like your guys sounds sick, for plenty of
The answer's last meeting?
Oregon State School.
something like that. Or you'll see that above a character's head if they're really like
That's why the tuition sucks.
surprised or just frustrated by something, and it's meant to convey like a weight, like a heavy weight that's come down on the speaker, whether it's in a comedic situation or not. So that's also something that you can do. You can use shading to convey that emotion as well. If we go into more comicking and stuff like that, you guys can keep this stuff in mind and use these to sort of set the scene for your comics. So.